Right, guys, welcome to Kwame Affair Exclusive, Facebook. Check out Kwame Affair on Instagram. If you're dealing with YouTube, it's Kwame Affair Exclusive. And those of you watching me here on TikTok, it's Kwame Affair Global. Today, I'm talking about one of the biggest controversy. It is a controversy of vision, a controversy of leadership, a controversy of fear and lies. A controversy where people want to believe, people want to have hopes, people want to see as to whether this can be a possibility, but based on promises that have been broken before, people are just in a state of dilemma as to whether to believe what this businessman is saying or not. There is a Ghanaian businessman or a young Ghanaian businessman who wants to lead Ghana and take Ghana to its promised land. This young businessman is in the person of Kwame Bediako, popularly known as Cheddar. This young man wants to lead Ghana, and by taking his message to the people of Ghana, he was in one of the radio stations in Kumasi, and he made a comment to the effect that he can improve transportation in the Ashanti region by connecting the sea from the central region to Kumasi, the Ashanti region. As to whether this is possible or not, this has become one of the controversial issues a lot of people have been talking about in Ghana. Today, I want to bring a finality to the issue by bringing available data to help you appreciate the possibility of his comment. And then as to whether Ghana as a country or Kumasi as a region needs such a facility in terms of its scale of preference or priorities. Ladies and gentlemen, join me as we review literature on his comment and as to whether there is some level of possibility in what he said and per the pertaining economic environment Ghana finds itself as to whether it is the right step to take. Okay, so the comment the businessman made, we normally call him Cheddar, that it is possible to connect the sea from the central region to Kumasi. One, is it possible? In my own opinion, it is possible because it's been done elsewhere. Two, is it a priority for the people of Kumasi and per Ghana's economic environment? That I'm in doubt. I'm hopeful that Cheddar can bring proper feasibility studies that can help us appreciate the cost aspect of the project, the duration of the project, and in terms of funding, as to whether we are mortgaging with any of our resources or there is any unique way of funding such a project. And to him, Cheddar, as to whether it is a priority in this our current economic dispensation. All right, so helping you appreciate the fact, this is what I'm going to do. You know, we have what we called countries who don't have any connection with the ocean. Now I'm going to give you a brief understanding of these countries and then help you appreciate how some of these countries have moved from that point to another. Now, these countries are the countries we call landlocked countries. And anytime we say landlocked countries, these are countries who have no connection to an ocean. Now, we have some of these countries across the length and breadth of the world. And I'm giving you few examples. And then we turn our attention on Africa and then give you some of the countries who have made good use of artificial water path. All right. So if a country doesn't have any connection to the sea, that is a landlocked country or a landlocked country. So, for example, Kumasi can be termed as a landlocked territory because it doesn't have connection to the ocean. Okay. Now, Kumasi is not the only place where they don't have connection to the ocean. You can talk about Switzerland as a territory or as a country. When you come to North America, it has no landlocked countries. Australia is rather obviously not a landlocked, which we all know. But when you go to United States of America, over half of the states are landlocked with no direct access to the world oceans. So even half of United States there are about half of the states that doesn't have access to ocean. All right. Now, if you come down to Europe, you can find countries like Belarus, Czech Republic, Hungary, Moldova, Serbia, Slovakia, and the likes. They all don't have access to ocean. Now, when we drop it down to Africa, you're looking at countries like Botswana, Burkina Faso, Central Africa, Burundi, Chad, Ethiopia, Lesotho, Malawi, Niger, Rwanda, South Sudan, Swaziland, Uganda, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and then Lesotho. Now, the question I want you to ask is, how have these countries been affected in terms of their development for not having access to an ocean? That I'm going to leave that to you for you to think through it. And secondly, when a country doesn't have access to the ocean, what are some of the challenges it will face? So I bring you this. For example, since Kumasi doesn't have access to ocean, these are some of the general challenges that have been given to territories which are termed as landlocked. So if you don't have access to ocean, it is being deemed that you will lack access to fish and some ocean food sources, right? So you don't have access to, is it that Kumasi doesn't have access to food in terms of fishes or other ocean food source? Does Kumasi one way or the other have access to all these? Are they highly priced? Can we say that when you go to Kumasi and you want to buy fish, I can tell you for a fact that sometimes some of the fish in Kumasi is even less expensive than that in the various coastal belt. Yeah, because all of them are sending their product to Kumasi, and at the end of the day, demand and supply factor, supply exceed demand, and then prices come down. So they even enjoy a variety of fish, sometimes more than those on the coastal belt, because fish sometimes over there in Kumasi is cheaper. Well, this is my personal observation. It is debatable. Other question is high transportation and transit costs because of lack of access to port and world shipping operation. Is Kumasi having that challenge? What are the people in Kumasi's issue, or the exporters in Kumasi or importers in Kumasi? What is their challenge? Is their challenge about Ghana's general port duties, or they have a challenge transferring your product from the port to Kumasi? Which of the transportation fares or which of the transportation costs have they been complaining about? What I know is people in Ghana do complain so much about huge tariff at the port. And so if we want to do something to reduce cost of production for our brothers who are importing into Kumasi, costs at the port will some way, somehow have to come down. We'll have to reduce it drastically. Somewhere at Togo, it is a free port. I don't know if Ghana cannot do half of it, or if we cannot do it fully, can't we do half? I think that is equally a way to go. And then finally, military limitation because of lack of naval option. Are the people of Kumasi complaining that they need a naval base? In terms of their security, are they challenged in any particular way? Do they really need this? These are questions I want you to be thinking about. But first of all, or as we go into it, I'm giving you 3 artificial waterways which have been constructed across the world to let you appreciate the fact that whatever Cheddar talked about is possible. But then the question again will be, in our current economic dispensation, with our current debt to GDP ratio as proposed by the finance minister for the first quarter of 2023, somewhere around 71.1, are we sure within this dispensation this will be the best of priorities for us to go for? Well, the data is available. Prices of food, nature of our roads, and many other social amenities which Ghana lack. Will that be a priority, or constructing a water pathway from central region to the Ashanti region? Will that be a priority for us, or should that be a priority for us? That is something you can think about. But then I am still helping you to appreciate that it is possible. So we will look at these 3 canals and then do a few calculations around this to actually get into the cost, and then help you to appreciate the realities of what Cheddar talked about. We have the Grand Canal, and the Grand Canal is actually based in China. is actually called the Great Transportation River. Now, the Grand Canal is the longest canal or the artificial river in the world, and then UNESCO actually acknowledges that. It is also known as the Chinese Jinghang or Beijing's Hangzhou, right? Okay. Now, when you look at the length of the Grand Canal of China, it is 1776 kilometers or 1,776 kilometers. Now, in terms of miles, it is 1,104 miles. 1,104 miles, right? Now, that is the length. And then in terms of the three canals that I've picked, the Grand Canal of China is the biggest. So it's actually started from the Xu Dynasty. You can go and check when the Xu Dynasty started. You can find more about that. So literally when we say the Grand Canal, it's just the great transportation. That's basically what it means. Now, China has done it. I know it's taken them a very long time. Through my research, I realized that all these canals that I'm talking about took place over 100 years ago. Now, what is going to be interesting is when you get to find the cost element even back in the days. You will appreciate the cost factor associated with constructing an artificial waterway. Now, we'll come back to Africa and talk about the Suez Canal, which is right here at Egypt, where civilization started. Now, the Suez Canal is an artificial sea level waterway in Egypt, connecting waterway in Egypt through the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea, through Isthmus of Suez, through to Asia. It was actually completed on the 7th of November, 1869. That was when it was completed. And then the construction actually started on 25th of April, 1859. Right? Okay. You can do the calculation, but I can bet you all of them are over 100 years, which means that it's been a very long time since these facilities were constructed, right? Okay, let's move forward. Now, talking about the Suez Canal, the Suez Canal, in terms of its length, is 193.3 kilometers. In terms of mile, it's 120.1 miles. Now, let's get this very clear. At least now you appreciate the Great Canal of China, which is about 1,776 kilometers. Now you appreciate the length of the Suez Canal of Africa, which is 193.3 kilometers. Now, in terms of cost, this is what I want you to pay attention. Now, I couldn't get the cost for the Great Canal of China. There were some changes or there were some amendments which were done, or some reconstruction which was done. That is not entirely the full cost of the project. So if you do the project and at a point in time, or let's say in 2015, you decide to make some changes, I can't use that as a basis to talk about the entire cost of the project. So I will rather focus on the Suez Canal. Now, the Suez Canal project was founded with interest-bearing investments certificates issued exclusively by Egyptian entities and individuals. Now, with the Suez Canal, we're going to do some calculation here. There was some expansion in 2014. Now, so the Egyptian government did an expansion which almost doubled its capacity, right? So in terms of doubling its capacity, meaning that now it could pick more ships rather than how it used to be when it was initially constructed, right? Okay, so the bypass was actually constructed. It was a bypass, or a 35 kilometers bypass, which was actually constructed. And then it made it possible for its capacity to increase, or the ship capacity to increase, or the number of ships that it could take at a time from 49 to 97. Yeah. So that was a positive sign for them. For example, and so this is what we're going to do. In 2014, if the Egyptians said that they were going to increase the capacity of their canal, and then by so doing, they injected 9 billion US dollars for 35 kilometers stretch. Now, don't forget that from Cape Coast, so this is what I did. I searched the distance between Cape Coast to Kumasi, and through Google, I found out that it was 207.3 kilometers. So I'm looking at a bit of the expansion that was done with the Suez Canal of Egypt and how much it cost them in 2014. So we are using 2014 pricing to determine how much a canal from Central Region, Cape Coast to Kumasi can cost Ghana. Okay, so this is how I did my calculation. Now, if 35 kilometers of road, if 35 kilometers of a canal or a 35 kilometer expansion of the Suez Canal of Egypt could cost Egyptian 9 billion US dollars, then how much is Ghana going to pay for 207.3 kilometers, which is the distance between Cape Coast to Kumasi? So if 35 kilometers equal 9 billion US dollars, how much is 207.3 going to cost us? If more, let's divide. I did the calculation and I found out that it was $53.3 billion. So if Ghana wants to construct a canal or an artificial water path from Cape Coast to Kumasi, using the cost of the Egyptian expansion of the Suez Canal in 2014 by 35 kilometers, per the calculation or the distance between Cape Coast to Kumasi, which Google gave me 207.3. When I do the calculation, Ghana is going to spend $53.3 million, $53.3 billion in constructing a canal from Cape Coast to Kumasi. Don't forget, it can stretch beyond Kumasi, because if Kumasi is the capital, I'm not sure that they would want to end it in Kumasi. Probably it could go through other bigger cities in Kumasi, and then it can be more than that. But we are using this figure just for us to get a rough estimate of how much we can spend. Now, if 53.3 billion is so huge for us, let's appreciate this. Recently, Ghana went to the IMF for just 3 billion US dollars. You realize the back and front and the various economic policies that the government introduced just because we wanted some 3 billion US dollars from the IMF. Okay. We struggled getting that 3 billion IMF money to sustain our economy. And look at I don't want to call it, look at the policies that came with it. Look at the debt restructuring. Look at those who had money at the bank or those who had bought shares from the bank, and then how things went for them. And look at the various restrictions that came with it. Now you would need 53.3 billion as it stands. The question all of us will want to ask Cheddar, based on 2014 expansion on the Suez Canal, as a reference to projecting the cost of a canal from Cape Coast to, Kumasi. How are we going to get $53.3 billion to fund such a project? What are the options for us financially? These are legitimate questions all of us can ask Cheddar. We want to ask Cheddar again that if we were just struggling for a $3 billion with IMF, going, begging, and then all that, how are we going to get this amount of money to fund this project? So I think Cheddar would have to help us to appreciate how this is going to happen. So this is one aspect of the calculation. 53.3 billion US dollars would be an estimate for the project if we really want to do. But this is not the only thing. The project equally takes time, because when you look at the times some of the projects started and the time it was completed, you realize that it is not a day job. It really takes time for some of the projects to be completed. I just want to go back to help you get, okay, so in one of the projects, you realize that the construction actually started. So yeah, that was the Suez Canal. The construction actually started from 25th of April 1859, right? Okay, so I'll quickly go through this with you so that through fact we can really know what is happening. Okay, so when you look at the Suez Canal of Egypt, the construction started on 25th April 1859. Now, the project was actually completed on 17th November 1869. By so, it took them 10 years to complete the Suez Canal. So the question is, Cheddar should equally help us with how long is it going to take for that project to be completed. In talking about that, and still if proper feasibility studies is done, we should be able to know the number of buildings that are going to be affected, where exactly is it going to pass. Like, we should understand the cost implications of what he's going to do and the source of finance. You see, I believe that the media should be bold to ask the right questions to allow Cheddar to equally provide the right answers so that we can assess whether these answers are realistic, measurable, and then feasible, right? I think that the politics of noise making and then all that, and then all that, I think we have to go beyond that by ensuring that we are asking the proper questions to get the right answers. Okay. Now, the final project or canal that I will talk about will be one from America. And then we'll do the calculation for it. At least we can have two of them and then do a bit of assessment in terms of the cost. So the last canal will be the Panama Canal, right? Now the Panama Canal is an artificial 82-kilometer waterway in Panama. Now it connects the Atlantic Ocean with the Pacific Ocean, cutting across the Isthmus of Panama. Don't forget, it was construction started in May 4th, 1904, and it was actually completed on August 15th, 1914, right? So nobody should tell you it equally took Panama 10 years to equally construct that canal. We've also realized that it took Egypt, by constructing the Suez Canal, it took them 10 years to get that thing done. So you can see some level of similarities here, right? And at a point in time, there was an extension, but I'm not interested in that. Now, according to, so let me give you the site where I found this particular figure. According to www.letsbuild.com, August 1914, it had to cost America $37 million to build the Panama Canal. August 1914, it cost them $375 million to cost it. But today, if they are doing the conversion today, they are telling us that they used 8 billion, right, to construct this. So I'll put it in the proper perspective and then quickly do the calculation for you, right? Yes, 8,600,000,000, right? Okay. So I did the calculation and then I got somewhere around 21 billion. So this is what I did. I did something like, if the Panama Canal is 82 kilometers, and then it's costing the US somewhere around 8 billion to construct, then how much is Ghana going to pay for 207.3, which is the distance between Cape Coast to Kumasi? And then, as usual, if more, let's divide. So I went like 207.3 divided by 82 times 86,000,000,000, and I got somewhere around 21 billion. So it's just between the ranges of 21, 53.3, but I prefer the 53.3, right? Yeah, which gives specific data in 2014. All right, so basically, in terms of the cost aspect, and then as we are sticking with the 53.3 billion, it tells you that, of course, it is possible because other people have done it. Now, one thing we might not be getting is maybe people are thinking about the fact that Cheddar is talking about sea, like the natural sea where you see the waves, and then, I mean, as big as it is. I think that is not what Cheddar is talking about. Cheddar is talking about a canal that can make it possible for ships and then boats or whatever to travel on it, by making it possible to move one goods from one destination to the other, and then be able to carry passengers from one point to the other. I think that is what Cheddar is actually talking about, just a water pathway, not necessarily your kind of sea you see in Cape Coast, Takoradi, and then Accra. No, I don't think that's what Cheddar is talking about. Probably the sea will be a source of water. There can equally be a different source of water that could be used in constructing an artificial canal, right? So this is where basically I will end my presentation. Cheddar's comments about building a sea from Cape Coast to Kumasi is a possibility, but one, as to whether in our current economic dispensation it is a priority for us, as to what are the people of Kumasi in need of, what are their priorities, whether the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Are we very sure that Kumasi has been able to attain its basic needs to a point that we can move to the top of the ladder and get something like an artificial water path for them? Are the importers and exporters in Kumasi crying for a water path, or they want the import and export duties to be reduced for them? Are the people of Kumasi crying about the cost of transport from the Tema port or Takoradi port to Kumasi? What do the people of Kumasi really need? Is this a priority? For its possibility, I can confidently say that it's possible, but is it a priority? All of us have to answer that question. My name is Kwame Affair. Make sure you go to my YouTube and subscribe to Kwame Affair Exclusive. Make sure you check me out on Instagram, Facebook, and all other social media platforms. Big thank you. See ya.